Go for it.
All right. Well, so my brother, my middle brother Eric, says to me about 6 weeks ago, um, "You want to go for a week-long canoe trip in northern Maine with my friend and his stepson?" And I was kind of like, well, I hadn't done anything like that in about 20 or 30 years, but I was intrigued. And at the time, I was also unemployed and had a lot of free time. So I was like, if not now, when? So I made a plan to go up to Maine with him and his friend and stepson for a week. So the appointed day came, and we piled into a car and drove up to the far northeast corner of Maine, a place called Washington County, which is right on the border of Maine and New Brunswick, and which is also the easternmost point of the United States. So at that point, the border between the U.S. and Canada is defined by a river called the St. Croix, and it's a river and lake system. So our plan was to spend a week basically canoeing down this river and lake system that forms the international border. So we met an outfitter who provided us with canoes and dry bags, and then we left our car at the basically outlet of the river near the coast, and then we drove about an hour and a half or 2 hours inland up river to our put-in point, and we put in with 2 canoes and the 4 of us, and spent the first few days on these lakes that form the headwaters of the St. Croix, and also, as I said, the international border. So you're basically looking out across the far side of the lakes is Canada, and the near side is the U.S. And there was no one up there on these lakes. I mean, nothing. You look around for miles in any direction, and you don't see houses, you don't see people. You see a few bald eagles and some loons and a whole lot of water and forests. So this was really quite something for me, having lived in big cities for so long and not really been camping and into the wilderness for so many years. And it kind of freaked me out a little bit at first, to just the quiet and the calls of the loons and the spiders in the tents and that sort of thing. But it was absolutely beautiful. And so we spent the first few days on the lakes and the headwaters, kind of making our way across these lakes, which form part of this kind of lake and river system, which actually was developed in the 19th century for logging. So these lakes are formed partially by dams, which kind of the big timber merchants created in the mid 19th century to basically build up enough water in the lakes and river so that they could float logs down the St. Croix to the coast, where they would be shipped off to various parts of the country and cut into lumber and turned into homes and such for the development of the country at that time. Maine was a big, it still is a big timber area, but this area, the St. Croix, is now kind of a protected wilderness, and there hasn't been any logging going on there for years, but you see the bottoms of the lakes and rivers covered with all these logs that sank. And once the logs are at the bottom of the water, they don't rot, they don't oxidize because there's no oxygen, right? So they just sit there, and the whole system of these lakes and rivers covered with logs at the bottom, just kind of a strange kind of leftover of 19th century industry. But
Mm,
otherwise, basically wilderness, and all the trees have grown back. Um, so we spent our first few days on the lakes, and then we reached the dam where the St. Croix River um, flows out of this big lake called Lake Spednick. And we did this portage, carried our canoes around the dam, and then got on the river. And then it's a completely different experience. Instead of being on these big wide open lakes, you're on this very narrow, rapid flowing river.
wow.
And literally Canada is like 100 feet away on the far side, and the US is on the near side. And you see people flying US and Canada flags on either side of the river,
Mm,
where there's a house here and there, and a lot of Trump signs as well. Definitely rural
mm,
Trump country up there. So we kind of spent the next few days making our way through down the river, through these rapids, seeing like bald eagles hunting from the treetops. It's kind of swooping down into the river to gather fish, and
mm,
spending the
great.
night illicitly on the Canadian side of the border one night, and basically just having very, very placid days, canoeing down the river, sometimes dragging our canoes across the rocks where the river was too shallow,
Uh,
and chilling out at these just beautiful campsites in the woods, and kind of getting to know each other and spending some
yeah.
quality time with my brother.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, what's the synopsis to that story? I don't know. It was a good. It was a good time, and cool to kind of reconnect with nature in a way I haven't for so
mm,
long.
wow. How
And
many days of actual canoeing?
I'm sorry,
How many days of actual canoeing?
I'm kind of losing you, but it was. I think we did 8 days and nights altogether.
Oh, it's a lot.
And so we ended up basically right back where we started, had left our car,
Mm,
and had covered probably by canoe. I don't know exactly, by it's hard to tell uh, because you're kind of crisscrossing a lot. But I would say we probably did 150 miles or something by
mm,
canoe.
great.
And yeah, great way to travel.
Sounds amazing.
And
Yeah. Mm,
really kind of interesting to experience far northern Maine, an area I hadn't been to before, and it kind
mm,
of really feels a little bit almost like the Alaska of New England. It's
mm,
just deep
mm.
woods, wide open. People are kind of big and burly, lots of like hunting camouflage, and so for this
Mhm.
city slicker, that was kind of interesting as well. Some Native American reservations up there too.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, and all within like a 6 hour drive of Boston. It's kind
Wow.
of a
Right.
sort of surprising to me that you can still find that much kind of wilderness, and uh, that close to the densely populated Northeast corridor.
Mm, mm, mm.